Hi again, everyone. So Kramerbooks has had an exciting week this week. Can you, for people here who don't know, can you tell us the news, the headlines?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
We announced this week that I just acquired Kramerbooks and Afterwards. And in addition to that, we synced it with the expansion efforts where we opened a brand new location, where we expanded into the new space adjacent to the space that it's been in for 40 years. And I'm very excited about the opportunities and the potential of this business.
So tell everyone about that new space. It used to be the Marvelous Market that was right next door to Kramerbooks, and it's a pretty big room. I mean,
it's about 800 square feet, and I actually got involved in the business about 10 months ago, and while I was really trying to understand and study this business, one that comes with so much complexity, so much legacy, what I was trying to assess is how do you protect something that's so iconic, so institutionalized, that has been a safe haven, a sense of place for so many people. It's interwoven into the fabric of Washington, D.C.
And it's been there for 40 years.
40 years. How do you protect that while thinking about what sort of steps do you need to take in order for you to live for another 40 years? And it's every bit of a fragile balance. And what I came to the conclusion was, and frankly it was interesting, I happened to know the tenant next door, which was the Marvelous Market, and then it became a Willie T's Lobster Shack. And I made him an offer, and we were able to work out a deal. And it was a tough deal to work through because we had the challenges of now introducing a third landlord to our portfolio of landlords. We're actually in 3 separate buildings. Which again, we talk about legacy and complexity. That's one, where we actually are located in 1521, 1517, and now 1511.
Just gonna expand up the block for forever.
That's right.
And so the new space is devoted to books.
Yeah, so the new space is devoted to books. And really the idea around this is, going back to what I just alluded to a moment ago, is while protecting what has been there and thinking through what we need to do, one of the things we've kind of come to the conclusion of is, in order for us to live for another 40 years, we have to become much more culturally diversified. And I use the term become master programmers. And I think in order for us to do that, a couple things had to happen, and this expansion was one of them. So what it ended up allowing us to do is increase our book footprint. And by doing that, what will end up happening is after we call the high season, which is now the holidays, we will actually shut down the middle of one of the existing spaces we're in now, and we're going to allow the food and beverage operation to actually bleed in from the back. So for those who have not been to Kramerbooks, we have 3 doorsteps on Connecticut Avenue. And then on the back side of 19th Street, we have 2 entry points there too. So we're going to allow to bring the food and beverage into the middle of the space. And these are one of the things I think we need to do to drive a higher level of curation and synergies between the food and beverage and the book side of the business.
And this allows you to continue to have a substantial book offering while still allowing the food to grow.
Absolutely, yeah. We're increasing some very specific sections such as children's, nonfiction, cookery, and the sorts, things that have been in high demand for a long time. We've clearly been challenged by real estate, and so this provides us with a little bit more breathing room and a way for us to sort of recalibrate the way we think about our merchandising strategy for our books. And also for the food and beverage. The food and beverage has been a very critical component to Kramer's for a very long period of time because it's really the social glue. It allows our consumers to stay longer and to sort of prolong that experience that we strive to create for our guests.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of both bookstores and a cafe as that like idyllic third space in a city, that place you can go that's not your home, that's not your work, and you can just feel like you belong and that you have a place to be. So the combination is obviously
when this opportunity,
wonderful.
When this opportunity came to me, I literally walked in on Connecticut Avenue and I was just hit with so many just different levels of energy that were just undescribable from a sensory perspective. And the first thing I thought about was, it's that ultimate third place. And I understand Starbucks has coined that term, though it's a little hard when you have 30,000 units or whatever the hell they have now. But nevertheless, I really felt like
30,000 places.
30,000, sense of places and third places for everyone. But it was really, for me, it really felt that way. And when you walk in, it's this whole sort of like Parisian book style and this get lost, be found sort of mentality where you kind of walk in, you roam around, and next thing you know, you're in there for like 45 minutes, and you disregard time, you disregard anything kind of going on, and it's kind of intentional. That's what I've learned.
I mean, and it's such a psychological break from the rest of our lives, which can be so kind of planned and busy. So it's a real treat. Can you talk, before you were at Kramerbooks, you were in the pizza business. And some people might see that as kind of a leap, but there seems to be a lot of overlap between the two, the kind of way that you're thinking about both businesses. Can you draw that connection?
Sure. Yeah, well, I think the key to building great business today is being very clear and concise about what you are and sort of what problems do you want to solve. And for me, I'm very interested in lifestyle. I'm interested in creating products, whether it's buying or ideating in the case of Van Pizza, where we can create something much more profound than just a transaction. I think there's something to be said for that. We're in an experiential economy today. I don't think that's changing. I think it's going to continue to expand. And I think as retailers, we have a fiduciary duty to our consumers to continue to figure out how can we connect at a much more profound and deeper level. How can we think about, in the case of Kramer's, how do we create a multitude of ways for a consumer to think about us while staying in the guardrails of the brand? So you ask sort of what are those leverageable principles? I think for me, my belief system has really been focused on, being bigger than the transaction, creating places that make people feel really good about themselves, and trying to create safe havens, whether it's through selling pizza and sort of leveraging the nostalgic nature of pizza, or in this case books. There's a lot of commonalities to your point. And so I wouldn't call this an analogous leap per se, because clearly there are vast differences, acquiring a business versus starting a business from scratch. Both have very different, unique challenges. But I would say I've been able to leverage my belief system, and I feel like I can continue to do that at Kramer's. And I do believe very strongly that those strong beliefs will prevail and will allow us to be around for another 40 years, which is the goal.
People might kind of be concerned about the idea of a bookstore over the next 40 years. Amazon obviously has a huge amount of market power for not just books, but a ton of consumer goods. How do you see yourselves as different? Like, what's your strategy for differentiating yourself from that kind of online?
I'll give you a fun fact I actually just read, so I'm actually excited to share this. So Slate Magazine just came out recently and stated that indie bookstores are up 8% over the last 3 years. So that's effectively almost about 3% per annum, which is pretty interesting. I'm into selling social experiences, and I think I just alluded to that, not to beat the drum, but I'm really into this idea of creating those senses of places, that nostalgia, that history. I mean, you can't make that up. It's not, it's not artificial. It's authentic. It's real. With regards to Amazon, we have a very vastly different business. Amazon's predominantly an e-tailer, where they focus on high velocity transactions, basement price points, and convenience by way of delivery predominantly. And even though they have a retail platform, it's really more of an extension of their core business competency, at least from how I see it. And so I don't really look at it as a very soulful effort on their behalf. I think of it more as an activation for them to tie back to their core business competencies. And, and I think for us, where we're really different is, we're focusing on becoming more of an experiential retailer, whereas I see them more as a supply chain logistics company.
And to your point about bookstore growth, there's been a couple new bookstores opening in the district, which kind of have bucked those expectations about bookstores today. It seems like the district is a great home for a bookstore. I mean, you have a highly educated,
extremely educated, very
population
audience,
who loves books. So, what has your feedback been from consumers, and kind of what is the relationship there?
The relationship's been really strong. We opened the new space on Monday, and I came in. It was really funny because we had people walking in. They're like looking around, and when someone's been going to a place for a long period of time, they have it's kind of
and they didn't know
normal course. They didn't know, and they're kind of they walk in, they're whoa, and they look, and next thing, and so then they go and they start tiptoeing, and I watch them. It's okay, you can go in, and they walked in, and the feedback's just been unbelievable, and it's really why I'm doing this. I mean, honestly, I almost look at this like it's like a retail Picasso. It's a very unique, very interesting, very differentiated piece of art. It's a really interesting business, and being able to expand it, which really is bucking a trend. And when most bookstores have closed, I mean, just around us over the last how many years? Borders has gone bankrupt. Barnes & Noble is on the brink, even though Barnes & Noble has now come up with this genius idea of putting food and beverage and books under the same roof. We'll see how that goes. But nevertheless, Books A Million has closed, and so for us, it's staying tried and true in what the principles have been of that company. Like I said, layering in what my beliefs are, finding the fragile balance between the two, and then staying focused on how can we expand, enhance our products, and create a little bit more of a culturally diversified venue so that we can pique the interest of more people.
And I know you're not originally from DC, but it
No.
seems like you've taken on these two businesses that are so DC in their identity. Do you feel like you've really adopted the hometown?
No question. I'll be here for a long time. My fiance and I just bought a home.
Oh, congratulations.
Bought a home.
Yeah.
So we'll be here for some time. You know, DC's been wonderful to me. I've been here for 5 years. You know, my pizza company's it's been great. You know, we started that 4.5 years ago. We have almost 20 units, and now Kramer's, and there's some other things that I'm working on that I'm excited to share at some point. So DC's been a wonderful place, and I feel. What's that? I can't give you a hint yet, but I'm happy to come back and share at another point, and you're all welcome to come. But you know what? I feel like if I can play a role in helping the transformation of Washington, then I want to do that. And I feel like with Pizza and Kramer's, you know, these are two really interesting businesses.
That's great. Thank you so much for
thanks for
joining
having
us
me.
here today. Thank you to
Appreciate it.
the
Thank you very much.
audience.
Thank you.
This was great.